Hello and welcome to my channel. So when it's been some time in between uploads, what I like to do is a little series called Since I've Been Gone. I think I've only done one iteration of this, but here's another one. And what it does is it gives me the opportunity to talk about a couple different things that have happened in the time since I last spoke to you guys. And so that is what I'm gonna do in this video. I'm gonna go ahead and jump in to the first topic that I wanna talk about, and that is Beyonce, or Beyonce Gate, hashtag Sheknowles. It has been a cluster on the internet for the past few weeks regarding Beyonce and what she may or may not know as far as what Puff Daddy P. Diddy's crimes were, and people taking that and running with it and attaching her to all kinds of crimes and deaths and disappearances over the last 20 years, almost 30 years that she's been involved in music in a public way. And I want to say this, in my last video where I kind of talked about pop culture stuff, where I was talking about, gosh, what was it? Diddy and the boys, the British boys, etc., etc. I talked about giving a little bit of spotlight and energy and validation to Jaguar Wright, because for years she's been speaking out about people and it seemed like people weren't listening. And I want to take that back. I want to take it back. When you're talking to me, I want you to know one thing. I don't know what's going on, okay? I don't know any insider tea. I don't have my ear to the, my ear. I don't have my ear to the streets. There's nobody passing me information. A lot of the things I talk about are things that are either widely known at the time, or they are, I don't know, they're usually widely known, okay? I don't have whatever information, but if I had it, if I knew stuff, then I probably would have known that Jaguar Wright is someone who just basically repeats what she's been told, and also someone that tends to add on, and somebody that is also known to have marked mental health issues, where she's had several things that have gone down. I'm not saying everything that she's ever said isn't true. Clearly, we've seen some things come to light. But I think looking at her and trying to recognize her or give her validation as an accurate source for past events is a mistake. It's a mistake that I've made. It's a mistake that a lot of people have made here recently. And not only did we make it, but Piers Morgan made it. He brought her on to his show and had her speak out against Jay-Z and Beyonce. And Jay-Z and Beyonce finally said, okay, that's enough. And they went and they offered to sue him. They said, hey, you can't do this. She's not, pull that episode, do it now. And a lot of people would give credit to Jaguar Wright because they'd be like, well, nobody's ever sued her. Nobody's ever told her, nobody's ever sent her a cease and desist. But the thing is that people tend to sue you when they know you have the money, when they know you have the lawyers, when they know you can really play. Piers Morgan does have the money. He has it. And Jay-Z and Beyonce know that. So, and also he's a legitimate journalism news source. He's, you may not consider him that, but he is. Like his show that he's on, he brings on legitimate people, and you're expected to do a certain amount of due diligence before you let somebody just come on and say whatever. And so Jay-Z and Beyonce were well within their rights, and it would be well worth their time if they decided to press legal charges against him. And so basically he was warned, and he ended up having to make an on-air apology and take some stuff off. But that's just what happened in that area of the world, right? In the news area. To lead up to that, there had been so much going on, and Beyonce was being blamed for so much stuff, and I couldn't believe it. Now, she has had a rough year when it comes to audiences. It started off last year, in my opinion, whenever the fighting broke out in Palestine with Israel and with everything that's going on in that part of the world. It started off then when Beyonce did not speak out against the genocide, when she chose to remain silent, when she put out her film at the time and she distributed it and people could see it on that side of the world. And there were videos that came out with young Israeli people singing, "You won't break my soul, you won't break my soul." And that made people really angry. You know, Beyonce, these people are using your music in order to celebrate how defiant they are against what their country is doing to another country. I felt differently And I've said it many times about that whole thing, and I'll say it again. I think that when you're talking about very sensitive issues of international warfare, I don't think that the pressure should be on a singer, dancer, choreographer, and mother to say, I denounce this. I think that because of her very sensitive position at the time, she was just wrapping up a world tour. She was in the middle of going to different places to premiere her film. There needs to be a high level of sensitivity when it comes to certain things that you will and won't talk about, because terrorism is real. We saw this with Taylor Swift, who was another singer who people said, hey, she didn't speak out against this, so we can't support, so we're not supporting Taylor anymore. I'm sick of her. When she got announced as Time Magazine's Person of the Year because she had a huge year last year, people were like, well, she didn't speak out against the genocide. A couple weeks ago, we saw that Taylor had to cancel a concert because there was a domestic or there was a terrorism threat made on one of her concerts. So she had to pull back and she had to say, hey, we can't be there. I think when people say that these artists need to be able to speak out about these things, they're not considering that, number one, it will not stop the fighting. That was the big argument that I saw at that time. People kept saying, if Beyonce would just say but one thing. And I was thinking, how does that make sense to you? How do you feel that if Beyonce would say something, it would stop the fighting between two countries who have been fighting for years? It would stop. How this is a new iteration of a conflict that has been going on for years. How would her saying something stop it? What? And it was, I think the idea was she would raise awareness. And if we knew what was going on, we'd be able to, I didn't understand how people, but that is what they thought, right? And I don't think anybody was thinking of, well, if she raises awareness, if she does this, for her, it's not just, maybe people won't buy my albums anymore. For her, it's not just, maybe people won't come to my concerts. For her, it's, I could lose my life. For her, it's people that are coming to my concerts, people that are attending my premiere, they could lose their lives. This is a very, very volatile conflict. And if I step my foot in it, I could be putting my life and so many others at risks that I'm responsible for. And I don't think people thought of it that way. People were at home on their couches, screaming into their phones on TikTok, writing in comment sections. And they were doing it for a lot of entertainers, influencers, content creators, whatever. I mean, last year, if you could be talking about lip gloss one day, and if the next day you weren't a professional when it came to international war and conflict, if you didn't speak up and say, okay, this is what's been going, if you did not overnight know everything about what was going on and use your platform to speak about it, the way that people were denounced and talked to, I mean, it was a little vicious. I understood why people might choose not to say something. I did think that it was a time to share your platform if you could. I know me personally, I didn't look to American influencers and content creators, singers, songwriters. I went searching for voices of people who were directly involved, whose families were directly involved, for more information, and followed them. I did not look, I'm not that kind of person. I don't care what a singer has to say about that. And some people said, well, Beyonce spoke out about, what was going on here in 2020. And she spoke, yeah, because that's her front door. That's right here. And that has to do directly with the things that she deals with every day. I mean, like, it's, if I speak out about what happens in my neighborhood, but I don't speak out about what happens 3 towns over, not only is it expected, but it's also good that I speak out about things that I'm familiar with so that I don't risk sounding like an idiot or saying something that I shouldn't say, or being, there's just so much nuance to it. And I felt like people weren't practicing that, and they weren't giving her a single bit of grace. I mean, you can look at my comment section for this video right here. I was like, yay, what do you guys think about Cowboy Carter? I'm so excited. And people were like, man, Cowboy Carter and Beyonce. I was like, oh, that's how we feel? Okay. Again, it started back then with that. And then as time went on, she came out with the sacred hairline. People gave her a hard time about that. We ain't never even seen her hair. We ain't never even seen, why would we buy it? And I'm thinking, who hasn't seen her hair? How old are y'all? And maybe I'm old, okay? I'm old enough, as we know, to be someone's grandmother at this point. I'm 40 years old. But I remember when Destiny's Child first came out, that was Beyonce's hair. Like, I remember, we've seen her hair. Like, what are y'all talking about? And she's a Creole American, so we know she got some inches. Like, let's not play. And then Tina, her mama Tina had a beauty salon. We know the girl. What's going on? But people made a huge deal about that. I'm not putting that in my head. I'm not. What does Beyonce know about hair? So Beyonce does a little day in the life hair vlog. She said, "Okay, look, this is my wash routine. This is what I do." I think she still got a frontal on at the front. That ain't her hair. That all right. Okay. And then people were saying, I think she put witchcraft in the bottles. If you use the hair product, you will be a witch. Just like Beyonce, she's a witch. So if you use the bottles, you're now a witch. You put witchcraft on your hair, it's potions. Anyway, so we had that, and then she put out Cowboy Carter. And like I said, I was excited about it. I tried to share my excitement here on my YouTube channel. People weren't having it, so I said, all right, I'm not going to talk about it. But I talked about it a little bit. But I loved Cowboy Carter. I thought as a work of art for her, body of music for it, like, I thought it was just beautiful. Hands to Heaven is one of my favorite love songs, period, of all time. I listened to, Just for Fun over and over again on a loop when it first came out. I mean, I love folk music. I love country music. I think her voice is perfect for a lot of those songs. Yaya was crazy. Like, I loved it. And here came the criticism, right? She's not country enough. It's not a country album. What does she think she's doing? This is not, she tried to say, well, it's not a country album. It's a Beyonce album. She don't know what she'll never fit in. Is this what she wants to do to get album of the year? She thinks she's gonna. And then, of course, the CMA nominations came out, and Beyonce didn't receive one CMA. Well, she don't spend enough time in Nashville. The way people went out of their way to make sure she was not invited, I was like, wow. And I didn't expect the pushback to still be there when with Miss Beyonce, when the Diddy allegations came out. Absolutely. I mentioned that in a video that I made back then, the fact that I didn't understand how she could stand for women, how she could, speak up for Black women specifically. I didn't understand how, everything she says about love and respecting yourself, and then be friends with a man like this, especially with all of the things that he does to women. Be photographed with him, do whatever. I didn't get it. Especially when her and Jay-Z distanced themselves from Kanye so much. I mean, she didn't even go, I don't know what was going on. I'm not involved. Y'all know I already said I don't know anything. I don't know nothing. I don't know nobody. But they didn't go to the wedding. I remember they didn't go to Kanye and Kim's wedding, and it was something about, it'd be too much of a distraction. I don't know what they said at the time, but I remember thinking, that's not right. Like, are they friends with him or what? Like, it's not, I don't know, And so I know that they will distance themselves from somebody. I know it will happen. But I think I said this in another video, Diddy was never professionally embarrassing. Whereas Kanye, he was like, I'm going to tear it all down. And so there's a level of wild cardness there. You don't know how he's going to act in a professional space, and Kanye kind of disinvited himself from a lot of stuff as well. But I want to talk about Kanye for a second. So in the middle of me recording this video and editing it, it's come out that somebody is deciding to press charges against Kanye. People, have been building these conspiracy theories around who they think is implicated with Diddy, who was included on the rosters and the ledgers at his parties. And they've been very, very celebratory when their favorite artist is not on the list. They're not on Diddy's list. And a person who people have been celebrating is Kanye. They've been saying, Kanye tried to tell us. Kanye is not crazy. After all, he tried to tell us about how evil Hollywood was. Well, this person releases this lawsuit against him, and she's like, no, Kanye was there. He was there. He did this to me. And this isn't the first time I've heard a woman say, I was assaulted by Kanye West. This isn't the first time. This is just the first time that someone has said, I was assaulted by Kanye West and Diddy was around at the same time. What I find is so interesting is that you have this woman that's come forward. She has all this evidence. She's got text messages. She's got pictures. She's got evidence. She's got anecdotal and concrete evidence, and it's included in this lawsuit. And you have people fighting for Kanye's vindication already, even with all this evidence. See, with Beyonce, we all have questions. I have to admit, even as a Beehive member, I have questions. I want to know, what does she know? I'm not saying she knows things. I don't know. Y'all know I don't know nothing. But I do have questions, and it has made me raise an eyebrow. However, if you look at her comment sections and the way people are so convinced, losing 1 million Instagram followers, just really paying this high price, and then you look at Kanye, this video or this story that was posted about him on the Shade Room page. Look at the comments. No, we won't believe this. He didn't do anything. We stand by Kanye. We're defending him. Kanye would never. Beyonce can't even get that kind of respect on her own page, in her own comment section. And a lot of people have pointed out that when it's men that are involved, people will fight to the death to make sure that they are not thrown under the bus. Don't do this to them. They don't deserve it. No matter how crazy Kanye was acting last year, the year before, he's still Kanye, man. He gave us, what was it? He gave us I forget the album that people always call out. He's still Kanye. No, we won't believe he's ever done anything wrong. No matter how many people come forward and say, hey, he did this, they will not allow a man, especially a Black man, to be rightfully prosecuted for their crimes. They will not allow for it. And I think it's one of the big blind spots in pop culture, in the Black community, especially. We have somebody where there's evidence. We have somebody where we can, but because for some reason he's protected, just like Diddy was protected. We want to withhold judgment for him until we're absolutely sure. But yeah, Beyonce, she's a witch. She's an evil capitalist and billionaire. And most importantly, she helped kill Aaliyah. And I'll get into that in a second. We don't even have to have evidence for a woman to throw her completely under the bus. But if it's a man, we have to literally watch him do it in front of us. And even then, people will question their own mindset, their own eyes, before they will allow a man to be treated the same way as a woman, especially in a situation like this. Another great example is Chris Brown. Chris Brown is literally photographed on Diddy's big backyard bed. But try and do what people are doing to Beyonce to Chris Brown, oh, you would have hell to pay. I just think it's very unfair, and it screams misogyny and misogynoir. But it's like, if you look at her that way, you also have to look at all the other people that went to his parties, that were around him in a way. And I think what's coming out now that we know more about him and what he was doing is that there were two different Diddies, right? There was the Diddy who would host the parties. He would host the white parties. There was Diddy who would be at these professional events. There was whatever. And then there was the Diddy and how he ran his private life and how he acted behind closed doors. And just because you were in one spot with him doesn't mean you were in all the spots with him. You know what I'm saying? So that's something I still haven't really rectified in my mind when it comes to her. But I'm also willing to know that I don't know everything, or willing to understand that I don't know everything. The internet was not willing to give her that grace, though. And that's where hashtag Sheknowles comes from. Beyonce Knowles, and then they would make these video collages, these montages, these edits where they would accuse Beyonce of everything from having firsthand knowledge and maybe even input on unaliving Aaliyah, because if Aaliyah was still alive, then Beyonce never would have been Beyonce. And I'll come back to that thinking in a second. My favorite conspiracy theory about Beyonce was when people pointed out that artists, oftentimes when they get on stage and she's in the crowd, they'll say, and oh my God, Beyonce's here. And I just want to tell you, I love your music and you're just amazing. And for me, I always just looked at it as like, yeah, she's amazing. But what people said was it was the way of the artist thanking her publicly, because she was the key to all this evil that happens in Hollywood. And if you didn't thank Beyonce, like you were next to fall to the evils of Hollywood. Crazy stuff. Like I said, whenever the Diddy allegations first came out, I was like, okay, now I do have a question for her. The Diddy connection. I do question how much she knew, how much she knows. I will say, though, that the idea that Beyonce would never have been Beyonce if Aaliyah lived is BS. For those of us who were alive at that time, we knew Aaliyah was a cool girl with a swoop bang. All right. We all thought she had a lazy eye for years, but she didn't. But Aaliyah was a cool girl. Her dancing, everything about Aaliyah was cool. I mean, she was cool. The baggy clothes, the like smooth dancing. Like, I mean, Aaliyah was just cool. Her whole bit was about not pushing too hard. Don't do it too hard, right? That's how I felt about Aaliyah. Like, she's just cool. When Beyonce showed up from the very beginning, it was a different vibe, a different energy. That was fire. And as she has evolved as an artist, she's fire, she's flexibility, she is spectacle. I mean, there's only going to be one Beyonce. I feel so blessed to have grown up in a world where she was my Madonna. She was my Janet Jackson. She was my she's the biggest, to me, the biggest female pop artist in the world, the most important one. The most important one. If Michael Jackson was the king of pop when he was alive, there is no king of pop now. There is nobody. Beyonce is the queen and king of pop, okay? IMO. Nobody puts on a show. Nobody has reinvented themselves. Nobody has given as much, in my opinion, of themselves to their, than she has, and shown us in her way who she is. That was another thing people were saying, you know, she's so fake. She won't talk to us. She doesn't show us her personality. And what's crazy is when people say that, once again, it's like, how old are you? Do you not remember what she went through when she first came out as an artist? Everything from people saying that she was illiterate because of the way she talked, to there actually being websites called IHateBeyonce.com, where people would go online and talk about how much they hated Beyonce. Whenever she would do an interview, people asking her questions about her relationship that she didn't necessarily want to answer. Do you remember when she had her daughter, Blue? How there was a petition that people were supposed to sign online so Blue's hair would finally be combed? Do you remember how people were to her? What I have learned about the public is the public never thinks that the public is wrong. The public can do whatever they want to do to you. They can drag your name through the mud. They can criticize you all day and all night. The second that you put yourself out there, you become this target for the public, and you're always a target, and they can do whatever they want. And you have to take it because you put yourself out there. You have to take it. And it seems to be that the unrelenting criticism and the unrelenting introspection into who you really are is your trade-off for making money and being out there in a certain way. And before I did this job, that's how I thought too. Whenever there would be celebrities who would be like, oh, I don't want to show you my kids, or, you know, my private life is my private life. I'd be like, get over yourself. You're a public figure. Show them babies. What's going on in your house? You know, it's very disrespectful. I didn't understand. Like, give us all of you. We want to see it. But there's a price you pay for allowing people too much access to you, especially when, like in Beyonce's case, there was so much negativity around her. From the first time she came on the scene, so much negativity. And that leads me to another thing people say about her, which is, but she's so unbothered though. My good sis, stay unbothered. Being unbothered is a myth. I'm here to tell you right now, right here, right now. Being unbothered is a myth. There was a video that I was going to do, and I never got around to it. And I was going to do it back in September when Chappell Roan was breaking down on social media about being a public figure. And the video was going to be called Being Visible is Easy, Being Perceived is Hard. That's what people struggle with. And whether you're a big celebrity like Beyonce or like Chappell Roan is trying to become, it's that perception of others, how they take your image, how they take who you are and massacre it and desiccate it and, you know, chew you up and spit you out. That affects your reality within your career. When Chappell Roan was like, I don't like, and she pops on with her hair all over her head and she just woke up and she got to tell us how she feels about everything. And people are like, she just can't handle being a celebrity. Nobody can handle it. Nobody can handle it. They just have teams around them and people that are like, girl, give me your phone. You cannot log on before a certain time of day. They just have people they can talk to about it. Nobody can handle this shit. Is terrible. Me personally, when people were like, you just can't handle the haters, nobody can handle it. Nobody likes it. It all sucks. There are interviews that Beyonce did when she was younger, and she was like, I cried all the time. The press would blame me for everything. I was criticized for everything. I used to cry myself to sleep. This is horrible. The baby is bothered. She's bothered, and she says it in her documentaries. Every documentary she's ever done, she talks about how people perceive her and the things that they say and having to be careful about what she shares. In fact, she did an interview recently with a magazine. I don't remember which one it is. I'll put it up here on the screen, where she talked about how necessary it is to make her private life private and to protect that part of herself. And that includes the part of herself that lets you know how much it hurts when you accuse her of killing Aaliyah, when you accuse her of being some sort of witch that's trying to put a spell on you through her hair products, when you accuse her of not caring about children and women that are dying in a genocide, when you accuse her of putting out an album just so that more people can kiss her ass instead of what it really was for, which was just a way to connect with another part of who she is as an artist and a human being. It hurts. But instead of responding, she has her team, she has her family, and she might make a documentary about it that she'll never release, because I don't know why she never gave us a Renaissance documentary. I don't know. But all I can say is that Beyonce being unbothered is a myth. She's always been very bothered. She just channels it in a different way. And I don't know. This has been a very interesting year for her. It's been a very interesting year for people who are fans of her. And I was proud of her and Jay-Z for stepping up to peers and being like, Jaguar can talk. Well, who is she? But you need to know better. You know better. And you know our money is long. We'll go there with you if you want us to go there with you. And he was like, I don't want none of it. I don't want none. And so it wasn't none to be had, right? It'll be interesting to see how she continues to, how her image and whatever continues to morph and move around in public, because I can tell you, a year ago I did not expect her to be in this place, but then I think without Diddy and the Diddy allegations, I don't think she ever would have been here, but here we are. Okay, so I was on my soapbox about that for a little bit longer, but whatever. I imagine that when people listen to these little since I've been gone's, you know, turn it on while you're doing something, while you're cleaning up, you know, I don't know. I'm just going to talk, okay? It's just going to be long if it's long. Let's talk about something else that occurred since I have been gone, which is Halle and DDG breaking up. I want to talk about this because y'all know, or maybe you don't if you're new, but I was a big Halle and DDG supporter. When Halle first got pregnant, I was not comfortable with the way the internet jumped all down her throat about how she was a failure. She was destroying her career. Having a child was career suicide. Having a child was the worst thing you could do. I was terrified when I saw people making videos basically saying, you know, I'm sure she could find a good abortion clinic. Why is she having this baby? I was like, yo, are y'all serious? Like that, really? And I made a video earlier this year when she first announced her pregnancy. And it's a video I took down because I didn't like, because I wanted to. I took it down. But in the video, I was basically saying that a lot of people were projecting their own realities onto Halle. And she was going to be fine. You know, getting pregnant young doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like that was my shtick when it came to this situation for a while. Since then, I have become a little bit frustrated, and I surprised myself, but I've become a little bit frustrated with baby mama, baby daddy culture. I'm a couple years late on being frustrated with it, and I think it's because my realities have changed as a woman. My realities have changed when it comes to who I might potentially date, if I ever date anyone ever again in my life. And the fact that someone's relationship with their children directly affects any other relationship they can have. And as a person who was very intentional about not having children with the wrong person, I sort of take it, I don't know, I I look at it a little bit differently. Basically, I began to ask in the time that I last talked about it, why is it so easy to have a baby but not get married? Why is it so against what people are so easy to have a child, to say, okay, we're going to have this baby together and then we'll see where the relationship goes. And then very shortly afterwards, their relationship is nowhere and we've created another baby mama, baby daddy reality. Why does that happen? Because what ends up happening is people end up either having the same baby daddy for all of their kids, but then are y'all ever actually in a relationship, or are y'all free to date and marry other people? And when you date and marry other people, you come into that relationship with the kids and the child support and the situation that you got with that person. You can wait, why can't we just be more intentional about how we create families? That's kind of the question that I can't, and I'm not trying to judge anyone, judge anybody's situation. I'm not trying, no, but since I last spoke on Halle and DDG, I have come to a place as a person where I am questioning the lack of intentionality when it comes to creating families. And I'm a person who has a problem with it, because every time a new baby daddy, baby mama dynamic is born, the potential for a healthy family that's like rooted in two people's healthy relationship with each other, supporting each other financially and emotionally while they raise the kids that they have, that goes away. And I know some people can figure it out and they've done it very well, but sometimes it doesn't make sense to me. And so that's where I was. And I was even beginning to think to myself, well, Halle and DDG, though, they'll probably get married. I was really enjoying the baby content that DDG was posting of him and Halo. Even though I think it's maybe a little bit too much. I know he makes his living doing social media. I still think that he has the baby online too much. However, it seemed like it was a much friendlier environment than when she first got pregnant, when they had to hide everything. And that was a whole, basically, I think honestly, Halle would have got death threats, or maybe she did. People were not playing with her when she was pregnant. So I liked the fact that the internet seemed to be much more welcoming now of them as a family, and of him as a dad. And, he apparently wanted to be a dad. Listen, there's a whole story there. But when it came out that they had broken up, I was very sad by that, because now we have yet another situation where a family was created unintentionally. When people say the baby just happened, well, then how come the wedding can't just happen too? How come you can't just go ahead and create that intentional family? Why can't that be the case? Because once again, you have a kid with somebody, that's fine, but now you have this connection with, as I get older, it's less possible that I'm going to avoid dating or being with someone who has kids, if I'm ever with anyone. And their relationship with the parent of those children is going to dictate how we are able to move forward. And I would almost rather people just stay with their original person that they have a baby with than be out here dating, single, doing whatever, and at the same time have these messy, incomplete relationships with the other parent of their child. Now, again, this isn't always the situation. Sometimes it's clean. The co-parenting's clean. It is what it is. But there are so many situations where that's not the case. And so I just have to question, when you do have all the resources in the world, when you do have the education, when you do have the career, it's one thing when, you ain't got nothing else to do and you sit around and you're making babies. Okay, but you have the career. You're a whole Disney princess. Why create an unintentional family? And DDG just turned 27. Halle's in her 20s. Why not get married? Why is it so easy to leave each other once you've made a baby? My parents have been married almost 50 years. And this isn't even, I'm not even talking about a situation where, you have, that's because your daddy was allowed to have side families, cheating all the time. That's not my parents. They've been married for 50 years. They don't always get along. It's not, but it's a decision to be intentional about who you're with, who you make babies with, why is that not something that people practice? Why? The second that she's pregnant, where is marriage? Why is nobody worried about it? You guys have to understand, I was not like this, okay? For a long time, I was like, live and let live. It is what it is. But when they broke up, I was like, I was rooting for you. You were supposed to lock it down and make, what's going on? Now you have this baby, but now does she get, well, I don't like it. I don't like it. It's not my life, but I don't like it. I also didn't like the fact that he was talking so much. I did like the fact that she was like, oh, I'm not saying anything. It is what it is. That's good, girl. Protect your peace. It made me sad. It definitely made me sad. Something else that made me sad since I've been gone is the comment section of the Call Her Daddy podcast. Now, if you don't know what Call Her Daddy is a podcast that was started by Alexandra Cooper and another woman, I cannot remember her name, way back in the 2010s. The podcast was very successful very quickly, and they were bought out by like Barstool Sports, so they were on Barstool's like programming, whatever. I started to see their clips come up on Instagram, I want to say like maybe 2019, around that time. And I immediately knew that they were not for me. And they were not for me because I could not identify with the dating habits of young white women in Los Angeles. A young blonde white woman in Los Angeles ain't got nothing to tell me about dating. Sorry. We have a totally different, she'd be on the podcast, she'd be like, okay, daddy gang. And then I had to go out to dinner with his parents in Malibu and I could not find my panties. Oh my God. Like, they were very open about their sexual escapades and open about whatever else. And I thought that was nice. Good for you. Good for you. But their realities, their social realities were totally different than anything I was living. So I was like, this ain't for me, but good, whatever, right? And I love the fact that they were able to grow their audience. And I always really liked Alex because I felt like she was like the boss or something. Like, I felt like I was like, I can't relate to you, girl, but I like what you're doing. I like your hustle. Then Alex and her co-host, who I cannot remember her name. Oh my God. They broke apart. Money was one of the issues. And Alex went on to make a ton of money. And recently she leveled up again, and the Call Her Daddy podcast is no longer about like sexual escapade. That ain't what's going on anymore. Now she's like a certified interviewer, and she interviews really big names. And recently she interviewed Kamala Harris. And because I knew where the podcast started off, again, she'd be like, okay, daddy gang, tell us about the last time you went down on your boyfriend's dad at Christmas. Like, it was so dirty and raunchy. So I was expecting the audience to be filled with liberal women, to be filled with women who were like, I did not expect what happened when Kamala Harris sat down to be interviewed by that woman. And I was just minding my own business. I was like, do. And somebody made a TikTok video about it. And they said, go look at the comments of the Call Her Daddy of the interview. Go look at the comments. And so I stepped into the comments, and I quickly had to get myself up on out of there. Quickly. It was a mess, y'all. It was a mess. Everything from people being mad at Kamala for doing an interview during a hurricane. Remember, it's not like everything from people being mad at Kamala for doing an interview during a hurricane. And at the beginning of the interview, Alex says we had to push it back 5 hours because Kamala had to go and deal with things. She's calling governor. What can we send you? What do you need? You can't even get into the places where the disaster is happening. Who's going to fly in? What is she supposed to do? Anyway, people saying she's unqualified. This myth about Kamala Harris being unqualified, I'll never understand that. And it'd be one thing if you were saying she was unqualified compared to, I don't know, but you're saying she's unqualified compared to Donald Trump. Does he have a bachelor's degree? How is he? And over again, people are in the comments and they're like, this is a bad move, Alex. This is a bad move. I think she lost like 5,000 followers that day. I mean, she has over 2 million, but I couldn't believe it. And it just reminded me that if you are planning to vote blue this election, you cannot take victory for granted. I think people already knew that because at the end of the day, Kamala Harris is a woman of color. And the whole conversation about whether or not she's black just stresses me out, because any other day we'd be fighting to prove she is black. Yeah, that's a black girl. I think in general, black people know that if somebody says, hey, I'm black, that we have to kind of be like, okay, it's probably in there somewhere. Welcome to the fam. If they say I'm black, then that's what we got. If we say Barack Obama was black, then Kamala Harris is black. You're dealing with the same kind of thing, a black parent and a non-black parent. So yeah, so that was one thing that we have working against her. The fact she's a woman, she's a black woman, she is a woman with no children, which people just have a hard time with. But we also have this silent majority of extremely conservative white women hiding out in places where I would never have expected to see them. I thought that comment section was going to be filled with women that were like, yay, Kamala, take us all the way, girl. I was not ready for that. I was not ready for so many women to be like, oh, why do we always have to talk about abortion? I'm so sick of this. I was not ready for that. I was not ready. I wasn't ready. And it just makes me very wary. They said that in the 2016 election that in general, white women tend to vote against their own self-interests. And I fear that is what we might be looking at again. I'm not sure, but damn. Yeah, that messed me up. Something else that messed me up, and I'm going to end on this note. We had another British podcast boy, get into some trouble. And this time it's some real trouble. This time it's not just some let's laugh and joke, and laugh it away. This time it's some real trouble. Philly, he is another one of these young British podcasting boys, like what are they? Shits and gigs guys. But he runs with the Nella Rose, and there's a Chunks crowd. These people are all like 10, 15 years younger than me. I didn't even know this man's name until he got arrested for sexual assault this past week. I didn't even know his name. Okay. I just know there was a clip going on about him, and he was just couldn't understand why he was single. He was just basically saying like, he's a good dude. And then this comes out, and it's a mess. And it just makes me wonder what is going on over there in the UK with the young boys and their podcasts. What is happening? This is a very weird year for personalities getting called out, people getting called out, things being revealed that you didn't. And you know what? Cat Williams called it. He said 2024 would definitely be that year. I'm going to wrap up this episode of Since I've Been Gone, because that is all I wanted to talk about. Please keep watching though for my next video, because I've got to get into Love is Blind, y'all. Love is Blind is a mess in season 7, and we need to talk about it. Okay. But for this video, that is all. So as always, thank you for watching.